New on Curiosity Stream. How do you connect a 16th century potato to limitless energy production? Could Napoleon's toothpick have a direct link to a machine that predicts the future? And how can a 1700s conch shell chart a course to humans connecting their brains to the internet? James Burke's visionary series Connections returns for a new generation. Experience all new Connections. With monthly, annual, and bundled plans, find the one that works for you at curiositystream.com.
Between aging and busy lifestyles, many women struggle with maintaining their physical and mental wellness. At Aquavita Concierge Healthcare Services for Women, we can help you revitalize your health and reclaim your life. We start from within by balancing your hormones, allowing your body to achieve and maintain desired weight goals. We also specialize in peptide therapies, regenerative medicine, sexual health, and aesthetics in our state-of-the-art facilities. Feel better, look better, live better at Aquavita. Visit aquavitality.com and begin your journey today.
Hey everybody, it's the two Jennifers here. We just wanted to hop on and do a little podcast tonight to catch you up on some updates that have happened since yesterday. Fruit Loop, you want to say hey to everybody?
Hey!
What's going on? So, a lot to talk about tonight. We have seen so much in the news lately, just off and on. A lot of statements from the families. So we're going to dive into that real quick. I'm just tweeting out the link real quick, so just please bear with me. I'm not able to do that until we go live. So we're just going to make sure everybody has the link, and we'll get started. I hope everybody out there is doing good. We are super impressed and amazed at the number of people that have been listening to our podcast, and we just threw this together for fun. More as a hobby. We were wanting to do it at a little bit of a later date, but the breaking news this week really threw us for a loop. So I think we just decided all of a sudden we would start this, and the response has been great, and we appreciate everybody listening. So we'll just jump right in. Just for you guys that are joining us that are very new to the case, we've seen a lot of people who, once the children's remains were found, kind of jumped on the case here. To find out more about it. And so on Tuesday at 7 a.m., the Rexburg Police Department, the Fremont County Sheriff, and the FBI executed a search warrant on Chad Daybell's home. Chad was arrested a couple of hours later, leaving the home, from what we heard, at a high rate of speed, right?
Yeah, that's what one of the witnesses said, that he was driving kind of fast.
Yeah. So he was taken into custody, and eventually we found out that he had a couple of felony charges for destruction of, what was those charges? You got them right there?
Yeah, so he was charged right now with 2 felony counts of destruction or concealment of evidence.
Yeah, so that's, and the reason, a lot of people, first off, a lot of people have asked, why haven't they charged him with murder? Well, so far we don't have the results of the autopsy back. So how this works is once the autopsy is complete and official notification has been given to the family, which as of right now it has not. They have been told, apparently, all sides of the families now have made their statements acknowledging that the remains were J.J. and Tylee. But once a formal identification is made and the medical examiner calls the families, they will determine a cause of death, and if it is homicide, they will upgrade those charges probably for Chad as well as Lori. We were really shocked to find that these kids were on his property. I think we maybe assumed even they would never find the kids. It's just there was the Yellowstone theory, and then Idaho's very barren in a lot of areas. You can drive for a long time and not see a soul. So the possibilities were endless, and I wasn't super confident that they would ever find the remains of these kids, but here we are. Fruit Loop's going to tell you a little bit about some of the statements that the families have been making in the last day since all of this terrible news broke. So what are they saying, Fruit Loop?
I just found it interesting. You had the Cox family reach out. The Daybell family reached out, which was Chad's parents, and their family. And then Chad's brother Matt and his wife, I think her name's Heather, they reached out separately and released a statement. Obviously, Kay and Larry, they released a statement. think Annie has, said some things. So they were just very heartfelt. I thought it was interesting that the Daybell family never met the kids.
Yeah.
They said, Chad, told them that, Lori was an empty nester, and all that. And it was interesting that they reached out and their statements were just heartfelt and just full of love and compassion. And then you have the Cox family statement. It came out and it was more
formal.
Yeah, more formal. It was actually released from their attorney. I thought that was kind of
typical, apparently, for that family.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody else released a statement through the media,
and it seemed like they wrote their statements. This sounded like an attorney wrote the statement, and it was dated in May. That's what was so funny is, did they sort of anticipate this and go ahead and draft up a statement about them eventually finding the remains of the kids and forgot to change the date? That was a big thing on social media yesterday. It's just...
Yeah, I think it was dated May 8th.
Yeah, it's over a month ago. So, and who else gave statements?
That's pretty much it so far. Matt, I thought Matt's was... he could have some information in there that we didn't know. We're not there, so we don't know everything. But I found it interesting that he had been in contact with Kay and Larry, from the start.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I was really surprised by that.
Yeah.
You could tell, and he had mentioned earlier that he had sort of pulled away from Chad some time ago because of his religious beliefs. So it doesn't sound like it's a situation where they were close up until the media attention happened. It sounded like Matt had kind of removed himself from Chad's life some time ago. And he also indicated that the kids were sort of like Chad. That was the impression I got.
Exactly. Yeah. But I just thought that was interesting that they reached out. That's huge. Kay and Larry, from everything, the videos we saw last night, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but they're just so loving.
Yeah, they really are.
They just, are awesome. I just think that's, it speaks a lot of them.
Definitely.
That when they're in Rexburg, they, visited with Matt, and his wife, and I think they have 4 kids. So I just thought that was interesting.
I think at the end of the day, that's healthy for everybody. You don't have to draw lines just because that's Chad's family and we're the victim's family. If they can come together, that's very powerful. You have to let love lead the way. They seem like very nice people on both sides, Chad's brother and his wife and kids, and then Kay and Larry. So we, I think that's very, very sweet. Now, one thing we noticed yesterday that we saw a video of was where Kay and Larry went to the home in Rexburg to Chad's. They were on the road, not in the grass, but they came into town apparently pretty quickly after the news broke, I believe I read. And I thought it was really beautiful what Larry said regarding Chad's kids. Do you remember what essentially he said?
I can't off the top of my head, but it was to the, that he wanted to be the peacemaker. Right.
In other words, he really wanted to meet with Chad Daybell's kids at some point to mend fences. And, Chad's kids, just Garth recently?
Yeah, the video we just saw today was Garth speaking to somebody that's out. That was the gentleman, I don't know his name, but Garth went out and spoke to him for a minute. And, we have to realize they've been put through the ringer too.
Right.
They've been thrown into this, and just like it's tough on them.
It is. And I think a lot of it too is that we don't know how these kids were raised. They're going to have an allegiance to their dad just straight out of the gate. Their mom's dead. He's the only parent they have. If they were raised with these beliefs, it answers a lot of questions as to why they defended their dad so much. But interestingly enough, Garth came out today and talked to this guy and made a kind of a little, you could tell he was trying to sort of break the tension. He said something about, it happens all the time, but then he said, but it really doesn't. I think it was, his way to make a joke. He seemed pleasant. He seemed grateful for the support. So maybe we've had a turning point with the discovery of the children on the property, to where they're going to soften. And I think at this point they have to face the music that their dad is very deeply involved with all of this, and you can't really argue facts. How do they feel knowing they had their children on that property, probably running around with these innocent babies? And I call Tylee a baby because to me, at 42, she's a baby. She hasn't even gotten started good yet. And poor JJ, 7 years old. But how do these kids feel today, now that they've had a couple of days to sort of digest everything, to know all this time the kids were right there on their property?
Yeah. And the thing, up until this point, their father has, been giving them information.
Right.
And, who doesn't want to believe their parent?
Right. And I think that's kind of just that childlike part of all of us, where I still think my parents are right all the time. So I just thought that was interesting that for the first time since all of this has started, other than Emma sticking her tongue out at somebody, we really haven't seen the kids very much. But he came out, maybe the start of something, maybe an awakening in his brain that this is all very messed up. And how can you defend somebody who apparently buried or alter human remains and buried them on your property? At some point, you have to start seeing your dad for what he is, and maybe we're there. It's got to be very hard on these kids. I don't like to see people bashing them because we do not know how they were raised. It's just a hard situation for everybody involved. There's so many families affected.
The gentleman that came out and he spoke to was telling him that he had been to Tammy's grave in Springville, and he had put flowers or a card or something on there, and then he actually said he saw the video. Garth said he saw the video that the guy put on social media. So,
oh, wow.
I thought that was, they're looking at all this social media.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's all being...
You hate it for everybody involved.
You do. The kids are, I don't know. We may find in the future that one or more of the kids knew things and did not tell. But I don't know. I find it hard to believe that all 5 kids were on board with hiding bodies in the yard. They have children of their own. Now, yesterday, kind of late in the evening, for us here at least, we saw that the Daybell kids were moving furniture out of their dad's house.
Yeah, it was quick.
Very quick.
The police cleared the scene. The tape and all was still up, but obviously they were allowed to go in. We talked about it, that the search warrant was just for the outside of the property.
Right.
So they were allowed to go in, and, it's been kind of an uproar on social media today about, were they allowed to do that? Were they getting rid of evidence? Were they, and you have to remember that they were living there.
Right, yeah. There were several kids, I believe, living there when all of this happened the other day.
Yeah, because you got to remember, Chad was gone. He was in Hawaii.
Right.
So they were living there, and it looked to me that was, I don't know whose stuff it was, but they loaded a trailer up and they took it out.
It was large pieces of furniture. It wasn't like they threw some clothes in the back of the car. They were loading, there were probably about 10 of them there. Mm-hmm. And I do remember reading that law enforcement allowed them to do this, so they did have permission to go in.
Honestly, I think law enforcement's not going to let them go in if they think there's anything else they need.
No, and in fact, before we go any further, today it looks as if maybe law enforcement is finished at the property. We have video that was just released not too long ago where they were taking down the yellow tape, the FBI van was leaving. So it seems like maybe at this point they've been there since Tuesday. You're looking at a solid 48 plus hours on that property. And it looks like they're finished. So here's what I was thinking earlier about the house. We were talking last night, me and Fruit Loop, about what happens if Tammy Daybell's autopsy comes back as murder and Chad got the insurance money. Have you heard anything about how that goes?
Yeah, my dad actually was an insurance salesman, and we talked about it a little bit, and it's very brutal when something like that happens. You got to look at it. That's almost $500,000 that we, know that he received, and they're going to go after him, full force because he played a role in that death, possibly. So they will seize and freeze everything, and they will take everything he's got.
Right.
And we talked about the other aspect, the government aspect of it, with the Social Security fraud and all that with Lori, with the
survivor benefits and the money that you get when you have a special needs child. You qualify for what is essentially disability. That it's money that the government gives you every month to help with the care, specialized care that your child may have. And we know the kids weren't alive when she was collecting a lot of this. So I fully anticipate some kind of Social Security fraud for her at least. But here's my question, and this is going to be interesting to watch. Has the sale of a house, or Chad's house, is that something that they can freeze? Because what I think could happen is they try to dump this property really quickly. It would be hard to find a buyer with everything going on right now, with the notoriety that this house is going to have in that area for the next generation. You're never going to escape what happened there. So I don't know that they'd be able to unload that property as quickly. But the insurance company, like you said, can sue him, but I wonder what happens if they were to try to sell it. I guess maybe they could get in touch with law enforcement and stop the sale if it comes back that Tammy was murdered, because he's probably spent all that money, if not close, because Lori had 5 different attorneys. She had 2 in Hawaii. She had the 3 when she got to Rexburg, so maybe we're at 6. We're at 6. Because Mark Means would be number 6. All of those attorneys need a retainer. It's not going to be cheap when you're accused of possibly doing something to your kids. Then you have where they lived in Kauai, which was a very nice townhome. It can't be cheap to live anywhere in Hawaii. It's a small island. They're islands. So that money can't be, and not to mention Chad's Rexburg bills, and then his own defense. He's on his 2nd lawyer now.
Yeah, what I read a little bit today was they could possibly put the attorney as, I can't think of the wording they used, but he would be in charge of releasing the finances of where they needed to go.
Okay.
Because you think about it, like, who's going to pay for Lori's stuff?
Yeah, well, eventually what will happen is when the kitty runs dry, they get public defenders.
Exactly.
Unless somebody steps in and says, I will front the bill for her legal fees. I don't think people are running to do that given the circumstances. So
exactly.
I guess when everything's gone and you have nothing left, that's where the public defender goes for anybody. It doesn't matter how big the case is or how small. Everybody's entitled.
I just wonder, we don't know because we don't know any of this information, but has the government already come in and froze?
Yeah, they could have.
The insurance company can't do anything until the autopsy for Tammy comes back.
Right.
So,
yeah, so it's a question. I just don't think they have to worry about the house being sold right now with everything that's just happened since Tuesday. Really quickly, if you live local in Rexburg, there is going to be a candlelight vigil at 8:30 on Friday, which is tomorrow night, at the Soda Tsunami Field. I would imagine maybe Kay and Larry might be there. They are in town. We've seen them at the house. Saw her interacting with Ian Pulowski's wife, right?
Exactly. That was such an awesome story. They have been in communication early on in this investigation, and to see them together, I think she made shirts up.
She did.
Gave Kay one. I think they actually hung one on the fence as well.
They did.
And it was cool. She was there in support, for Kay and Larry. And
right.
Larry said, these people are like family. If you're ever coming through Louisiana,
yeah,
please stop.
Yeah, they've made statements several times before that the people in Rexburg have been so kind and it's like a second home to them. And I think that's really beautiful how they've embraced this family and let them know that they care. Because, I don't think Rexburg is going to be, it'll be a blessing and a curse for them, a blessing with the relationships they've formed in a very unfortunate situation, but also a curse because that's where their grandson was buried in a yard. And so I think it's just going to be one of those places. It's going to be hard for them to hate and hard for them to love.
Yeah, exactly. Let's jump over and talk about the neighbor who,
Oh yeah,
gave some of the tip to the police. His name is Matt Price. He tipped the police on there were some bonfires that they had recently. And he had lived next door to him for about 5 years. And he said the bonfire started up right after Tammy Daybell passed. And when the kids disappeared, there were more. He just said recently, within the month, there had been 2 large, and he said they were very large bonfires.
Huge, yeah.
Hey, Mikhail.
What's going on, Mikhail?
We're glad you're listening.
Yes. Our favorite listener.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, he tipped him off and said, look, something's not right.
Yeah, and he had lived there, like you said, for years. And he said he never saw these bonfires. And he said they were very tall, like big, that you maybe see on the beach with a group of people or something or out in a field. And he said that was very odd. He had never seen it. He saw it a couple of times in the fall, a few more times recently. Also, Annie Cushing, I just found a post by her right before we went live. And I'm trying to see if I have a screenshot of it. Yes. So Annie Cushing posted, I heard from a local Chad was out in the yard digging and burning stuff last night, and a neighbor reported him. I think that's a more feasible explanation. I'm not sure about it being last night. What we've learned is the search warrant for this property was granted 4 days prior to it being executed. So it would have been, Friday? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Friday it looks like the warrant was signed for them to be able to go dig in the yard, but they didn't do it till Tuesday. So I have a theory that maybe with the tip, it's still, just a tip like that is not a good enough reason to go dig Chad's yard up, even though he's at the center of this. It's not anything that they found would have not been admissible, I guess, if they didn't have a search warrant. So they got the search warrant. I think maybe they were flying some drones or something. I tweeted a link out today about some of the advanced technology that's available in cases like this where drones can fly over areas and essentially find unmarked graves. Because we've talked about how yesterday I was convinced a lorry had maybe flipped because of the precise location they went in. They did not waste any time, went right to the spot. Within an hour, we had a statement that they had found human remains.
Exactly. And they also have the dog there as well, the cadaver dog.
Yes.
And what those dogs can do is unreal.
It is crazy.
They use cadaver dogs when fires come through and, people, are burned up in fires and all kinds of stuff like that. They still they can hit on a human being being in that ash and all. So
right. It's amazing what they can do. Yesterday, the FDA issued a no-fly zone over Chad's house. I kind of think I don't think there was a whole lot more to find, but I think possibly the reason for that is, number one, some drones captured some pictures that had some sensitive things and pictures of possible remains from overhead. And with the families, you don't want them to read a news article and see that, and it could be very traumatic, obviously. It was hard for me to see if it is what I think it is. But also, do you think maybe it's possible they were flying more drones over to make sure they weren't missing anybody else? At this point, anything goes, I guess. It would be shocking if they found another body, but maybe it wouldn't be shocking.
Yeah, it possibly could. Police use drones a lot. They could, want their own drawn up in the air, not any interference from anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I just there was a reason, obviously, for that no fly. I don't think they were anticipating pulling up any more remains, but maybe just they were flying their own drones overhead to make sure they got everything before they wrap up, like they just did shortly, not too long ago, from what we've heard. Let's see here. I'm trying to see. One thing we were talking about yesterday, this sort of goes back away from the news of them finding the kids' bodies, but we were figuring out math-wise the other day how much money they spent a month when Chad was free and he was video conferencing Lori. We had heard up to 2 hours a day.
Yeah, Nate shared that it was up to 2 hours a day.
Yeah, so we figure out it was about $800 a month?
It's about $900 a month is what he was spending talking to her. And she's been in there, what?
4 months.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah. So that's a lot of money that he's spending speaking with her.
Yeah, but I have to say, I'm actually really shocked that it came from, it's seemingly, we don't have confirmation, this is where it came from, but to think that somebody just saw something and said something. Otherwise, if you think about it, if that neighbor, if that's in fact how they were initially tipped off, if he hadn't said something about this, the oddity of these bonfires, we may have never found those kids.
Exactly. And I think it went along with other things that the police had. And, we talked about it, about just everything coming together that allows them to get a search warrant. It's not necessarily one thing. It can be, 10 different things. And they just needed that one thing to, take to the judge and say, hey, this is what we have. It's important. We got to go.
Right. And so that's the other reason I think if the tip truly was the starting point for finding these kids' bodies, they had to have been doing surveillance over the weekend over that site with some kind of special equipment to identify where remains may be. It's just crazy to think, a couple of days ago, they'd already been to the house in January. The chances are they might not have ever went back. And they were pulling a lot of things out of the barn from what I've heard.
Between aging and busy lifestyles, many women struggle with maintaining their physical and mental wellness. At Aquavita Concierge Healthcare Services for Women, we can help you revitalize your health and reclaim your life. We start from within by balancing your hormones, allowing your body to achieve and maintain desired weight goals. We also specialize in peptide therapies, regenerative medicine, sexual health, and aesthetics in our state-of-the-art facilities. Feel better, look better, live better. At Aquavita, visit aquavitality.com and begin your journey today.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Neighbors. And interestingly enough, I tweeted a picture out last night. You can see beside the barn a lot of those storage containers that we saw Chad and Alex moving out of the storage unit. There were plenty of those. So if those are being taken out, I would think there's a good chance that's full of physical evidence.
Yeah, possibly. And hopefully that'll come out, at trial of what we're going to find out a lot of stuff then.
Yeah. We're going to get bits and pieces where we're piecing the puzzle together with small facts, kind of like how investigators did in the beginning of the case, where we hear a little tidbit here and there, and then you've got to make a big picture. I still think at the end of the day, we're going to be shocked when a lot of these details come out. I don't think we really know the scope of this. And I think this case will unfold for years to come.
Well, we've been given bits and pieces throughout this whole thing that we've put theories together and, this is what we think, this is what, you think's going on, and then we're going to get the, exactly what took place.
Right, because if you would have asked me last week if I would have thought they would have found these kids on Chad's property, I probably would have looked at you like you had two heads. It's just something I never even thought of. I thought maybe there was some physical evidence there for Tammy, but I never would have thought that they would be stupid enough. I mean, I'm not trying to. I'm glad they were stupid enough because now we have the we know where the kids are.
Exactly.
But had they dumped these kids anywhere, we don't know what digital evidence they have, and I've heard it's plentiful. I've heard the digital evidence in this case is astronomical, huge, and they may not even need Tammy Daybell's autopsy to charge them based on the digital information they have, according to Nate Eaton from East Idaho News. So I'm sure if that's the case with Tammy, it's probably the case with Charles and everybody else.
Exactly. People think they delete things on,
Right.
emails and social media and everything, and nothing's ever deleted.
No, when you put it out there, it's out there. And you know what I was thinking? This is totally off topic, but I have to laugh. So through the years covering trials and everything, I've done some Google searches that are questionable. If I ever come up missing or something and they check my Google account, they're going to think I'm a freak. If they check my search history for Google, they're going to look at me funny because I've Googled so many technical things about murder and bodies and this kind of stuff just to educate myself on the subject. But, whew, that's probably all of us, though. I mean, honestly, if we just let a cop sit down and look at our Google search history, or not even a cop, maybe even a preacher, I don't know, get somebody in there.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah, I hope that day never comes for me.
So there's been some questions about why did it take so long to get to where we are to find the kids. And I think looking back, this case is huge.
Oh, yeah.
There's been so many twists and turns, deaths after deaths in different states, just everywhere, and so much evidence. And then you throw in COVID
right
on top of everything else.
Mm-hmm.
It's just crazy how much evidence and what they've had to go through to get to where we are.
Right. Yeah, it's a big undertaking.
And I think you have to be patient. And I know I've been in on certain cases, close to our area that people have, friends have passed away and stuff, and you want answers so quick. But you want to make sure that all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed.
Yes.
So
it's
that
a big
doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing. You have to understand that Charles's murder, Tammy's what I think is murder, those cases were seemingly resolved. So not only are you talking about the missing kids, which is obviously the center of the case, especially if FBI and the law enforcement thought for a good while they might be alive. They said no sign of life, no sign of death. So I guess that gives you hope, but also it's never a good sign when kids are gone for 7-8 months and you don't hear a peep, especially a 17-year-old girl who could be taking care of a 7-year-old autistic child. But there's so many cases, so many different agencies involved, and this agency has a few pieces of the puzzle, and this agency has their pieces of the puzzle, and sometimes you need this agency's piece and that agency's piece to come together to make a big picture. I can't even begin to think of the number of man hours, the number of people that have had to make sense of phone pings, phone records, getting surveillance from highways they think they may have went down. We're lucky that we're this far along, in my opinion.
Exactly.
I think you have to give it to law enforcement. Yeah, I mean, obviously in Arizona, they dropped the ball when Charles went to them about Lori. We were talking today about how if they had listened to Charles, and that could have given him steam in court to get temporary custody of JJ, we may not be here today. It's weird to think that 11 months ago, everybody was alive.
Exactly.
11 months ago, Charles was alive, Tammy was alive, JJ and Tylee were alive. The plan was definitely in motion. Alex was alive. That's 5 people in 11 months that have died. But I think the plan was in motion then, clearly. But, man, it's hindsight, but it's heartbreaking to watch that body cam footage of Charles. Because you could tell he still loved Lori.
Exactly.
And had they taken him serious and not brushed him off, that cop to me, I felt like his time was being wasted by his demeanor. You know what I'm saying? It just seems like the cop was just dismissing every single thing Charles said. Never taking him seriously. That could have changed the course of all this.
Exactly. It's heartbreaking to see, that take place, and
It is. You just so many missed opportunities
yeah.
to save these kids.
So we did a little research on what it was like at the jail.
Oh yeah.
So the women's side, the facility houses about 20 female inmates. And there's actually a video, if you Google it, we can find it and post it on our Twitter or whatever. I think it's Nate. Wasn't it Nate interviewing? Yeah.
Yes.
Nate interviewing the guy at the jail, kind of what takes place each day. And it was interesting. They're like up at 7 for breakfast. They eat lunch at like 11:30, he said. And then
11:30.
They eat supper at 5:30. And then there's like an hour of rec time in there somewhere, and it was and they said the gentleman said it's kind of boring because they do the same thing every day.
Yeah.
It's on a schedule that they do the same thing every day.
But they do get to watch TV essentially all day long. I would imagine if you have discipline issues, they may take that away. Excuse me. But, Lori has to be sitting around watching TV. Maybe she doesn't, but I wonder how odd it would be to be sitting there in jail and see your children's face pop up on that screen, or video of you and your husband in Hawaii. You have to wonder, at this point, what's her state of mind? I mean, is she scared? I don't care if she's scared, but what is she feeling? There were some rumors floating around yesterday on social media about her reaction to learning that Chad had been arrested. And I'll put them out here because we will say right now there was some argument about whether this information was valid. We had one person say that when she was told Chad had been arrested and they had found remains, that she flipped out, right?
Yeah.
She tore her cell up, was trying to hit people. And then we had somebody say that she just went to her cell. She watched TV for a bit and then went to her cell and went to talk to nobody. I don't know how true that is. We are not claiming that to be fact. It was floated around from people who apparently has a cousin that works in the jail, but, tales grow taller down the line. We just thought we would put that out there. It's, whatever her reaction is, who cares? I mean, I can't get over what has transpired. I thought as of recently they were dead, but it just seems a lot more aggravating, and that's a legal term, but to bury those children on your property. I've seen pictures of his son on a four-wheeler right by where the kids were buried.
Yeah, it's crazy. So on the male side, they house about 60 to 80.
Oh, wow.
They have the capability to house 100 total, and that's men and women. So they house about 60 to 80 on the male side, so that's what right now Chad's dealing with. There's, a lot more people on his side than hers.
But actually, Chad is in Fremont.
That's right.
And Lori's in Madison, so the lovebirds are separated.
That's another thing.
They're not in the same county.
They can't communicate.
Right. Not at all. He doesn't have the right to call her now. And she can't call him. So I'm curious if she's talking to anybody at this point besides her lawyer. Her one thing we learned yesterday that was very interesting was that if you remember, her mom and sister did an interview earlier this month. Apparently, right after that interview, sometime between the interview and where we are now, there was a search warrant served on her mother and father's home.
Exactly. I was shocked on that one.
I was very shocked. Why do you think they did that?
I have no clue unless it was something they said in the interview. If it had to do with her saying she talked to JJ on October 1st.
Right, and we know at that point, unfortunately, he was most likely deceased.
Exactly.
So she was lying.
Yeah, exactly.
What else has she lied about?
Yeah. I'll be interested to see what comes out in that.
Definitely, because, I think all the parents of the people, Chad and Lori, they've all been interviewed by the FBI. We've heard that. Tammy Daybell's parents have been interviewed. They gave a statement today that was very beautiful as well, just expressing their sympathies, and they said they are still, grieving the loss of Tammy, of course. I'm sure this has to be so hard for them because not only are you grieving what could be a murder of somebody you love, you've got children involved. You may have a couple of other people that were, met the end of their life at their hands. So I can't imagine. This will follow these people till the day they die in some capacity. They may turn on the TV and just see something about this case in 10 years. They'll never fully escape it. And that's one thing. I've become friends with Travis Alexander's family, some of them. And one of his family members, his sister, told me that she feels like she can't escape it sometimes. People mean well, and they message her on Facebook and things like that. But I saw an interview with a mother in Canada that had lost her daughter to murder. And it was interesting what she said. She said that, sometimes she cannot even think about the good times with her daughter because what happened to her takes over. And that was kind of what Tanisha said. And that's really sad to me, that somebody can take a person that you've known since birth, or you gave birth to, or you grew up with, and take that memory and make it into a negative to where you get to a point to where you can't think about that person.
And that was the big case out of Arizona.
Yes, that was Mesa. Mesa, which is where I think Charles lived, was Mesa, Gilbert, all those were involved.
Right, close all into Phoenix and all that area.
Yeah, so we were out there for that trial. Beautiful country. I mean, Arizona is gorgeous.
Yes.
I could live there.
Yes, it's amazing. So right now, let's talk a little bit about Chad's charges. So there are 2 felony counts of destruction or concealment of evidence. Do you want to touch base on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, so essentially with that, we talked about this at the beginning. Why isn't he charged with murder? Well, right now, if they were to go to court tomorrow on these charges, and the prosecutor said that yesterday, they said, how long do you need for a preliminary with the charges you have now? And he said, a day. 1 day. So right now, it's obvious they can prove that Chad committed these 2 felonies, which is assisting or burying these remains because he knew they were going to be a part of a criminal investigation. And further, they indicated perhaps one of the bodies was maybe dismembered, burned, one or the other or both. And so you don't need a cause of death to know that he tampered with that. What'll happen, like we said earlier, once this autopsy comes back as a homicide, those charges will get upgraded. But right now, that's 10 years maximum in prison with a $10,000 fine, I believe.
Yeah, that's what it said. So that'd be, 20?
Right, and both of their bail right now is $1 million. But once this autopsy comes back and they upgrade these charges, it'll be a no bail situation, and then they'll stay in until trial.
Exactly. And everybody's worried about who, if Alex did the killing, are they going to get off and blah, 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 blah. I honestly don't think that it will. I don't think they'll ever see the light of day.
No, they're not going to see the light of day. Now, here is my concern, and I know a lot of people don't want to talk about this right now because we just got justice, or we just found the kids, and Chad has finally been arrested after 8 months. Now, here's the thing. We discussed what is most beneficial to Lori and Chad is to plea down, go ahead and plea guilty, or do they go to trial? I think a defense attorney is probably going to encourage them to go to trial because all it takes is one juror to sympathize with Lori and I tell you, I will be so surprised if they do not use the brainwashing defense. Yeah. Because you're going to have, here's the thing, and I don't know how this works, but you have Kay and Larry and Annie who all said they loved Lori. She was Mom of the Year. Kay was so happy. Charles and Lori decided to adopt JJ because she was very active in Tylee's life. They thought she could give JJ a much better, closer watch upbringing than they could with his autism. And so that could come into play in trial, and I think it will, where it's going to be brought up to a jury. Hey, look, you have the grandparents of one of the murder victims and the aunt of the other murder victim who's saying she was wonderful until she met Chad. There was one interview I watched last night with Larry where he said, until about a year ago, everything was fine. So that's the thing that I worry about is, I mean, I don't know if they'll plead down. I don't think their egos will allow them to do that.
Exactly.
But I do worry if this goes to trial. I think Chad will have a much harder time of getting off on anything just because he's a man. For some reason, with Jodi Arias, during the retrial of the penalty phase, we were sitting in that courtroom when the verdict came down, and we really thought it was going to be a sure thing. We had heard rumblings it was going to be the death penalty for her, but one female juror, I believe, felt like she had been emotionally abused and therefore did not deserve to die. So if the defense attorneys are going to have a half a chance of any kind of leniency in a sentence with Lori, I think they go that route. And, that'll be seen. I don't think we're going to see this thing at trial for at least a year. It's going to be a while.
Exactly. Everybody's going to be in for the long haul.
Yeah, Mikhail, I see what you're saying, and we both talked about this.
Yeah, Larry, he's taking it hard, but, I mean, that's his grandson.
Yeah.
And we just have to lift him up in prayer and pray for him every day that, I was thinking the other day, what good can come out of this? And in looking at what's going on in our world, these two kids missing have brought together so many people.
Yeah.
And just crossed lines, and everybody just pulled together to, try to find them.
Right.
Relationships have been built with Kay and Larry and people they've come in contact with, and you hate to be in this situation, but
if you can ever get something good to come out of something so nasty and evil, then it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it, of course, but it's a nice little bonus if friendships are formed. I've made friends, lifelong friends, through trials. The Jodi Arias trial, we became friends with some of the family, some of Travis's friends, and I still speak to them to this day. So there are little blessings scattered in a lot of evil. I do worry about Mr. Larry Papa. I want to give him a big fat hug.
I know, right?
But I noticed about a month ago, he started looking tired. He started looking defeated. I didn't think his color was that great. He's lost weight. The same with Kay. She just didn't have what little pep she had. A month ago, I just saw it all kind of fizzle. And I understand. I can't imagine not knowing where somebody I love is. Are they out there? Are they hurt? Are they in danger? Are they dead? It has to be a vicious cycle for these families. And poor Colby, he's lost both of his siblings and essentially his mother. He's lost everything.
Yeah.
And he's been very quiet. He did issue the joint statement with Kay and Larry. And so we're thinking about everybody and hoping that somehow in the mess, peace comes over you and covers you, because we can't imagine. But so was there anything else, Fruit Loop, that we were going to touch on today, or did we kind of hit it all?
I think we hit it all.
Yeah. So I think the next thing is going to be the positive identification from the FBI, Rexburg, Fremont. Charges will follow that most likely. And then we wait for trial. I think if they upgrade Lori's charges, we probably won't have that hearing next month. It'll be pointless. That'll be tacked on. And then you also had asked earlier, too, it was a good question. What do you do with these charges that Chad's currently facing if they upgrade? Well, you keep those charges on, I would assume, because he did tamper with bodies. He did bury bodies on his property and everything else they alleged he did with the bodies. So it'll be a lot more charges, just like I anticipate Lori to have Social Security fraud and a slew of other things. And gosh knows what they found digging through her past. I mean, there may be crimes that aren't really related to this case that are uncovered. But the biggest one, obviously, is their culpability for the deaths of the kids. And hopefully they can pin Tammy and Charles's murder on them.
Exactly.
And then everybody gets justice, and this is just a tragic story that I think we will see many documentaries, many case studies about for a long time to come.
Yeah, I think this is even Annie stuff, Annie Cushing's programs that she's writing, and it's going to help further cases down the road be able to. I don't understand the whole deal of that.
No, it's very confusing.
It's
I feel
very
so
confusing,
dumb.
but she is like smart and very data oriented, and she's been doing an amazing job getting all that stuff done. So, I mean, that's a positive to come out of all this. Mikhail, people grieve differently, and Kay, they were talking and laughing out there. I think at one point Larry says if JJ was here, he'd be pulling those little pinwheels and running up down the road and all that kind of stuff. So
I think maybe the energy of Rexburg and the love they felt being there maybe allowed them a little bit of time to reflect in a positive way on JJ. You hope in the moments of desperation and immense sadness that they can find a memory to smile about, because this is going to be a very rough road for these people, that they will never get off this road.
Yeah, and I think Larry, he mentioned he didn't want to go, and Kay was the one who said, no, we're going.
Yeah.
So they, came up, and he was so thankful that he did come, and it was kind of cool to see them interact a little bit.
It was, yeah. You just saw a moment where they were able to smile, and then in the next breath, Larry was crying, and that's all very normal. They've had months to prepare, but nothing prepares you for the final word. I'm sure in their minds they thought the worst for a long time, but when you get that confirmation, we found him. Well, it's as if you never would have thought they would have found him dead, I'm sure. It's just, it's got to be a semi-truck hitting you in the face. So we are praying for everybody. We're thinking about everybody.
But how awesome for Rexburg, that little town, to come around and just pick these people up and support them, and to be the eyes and ears. I know on the Facebooks, there's been so many people that would drive by and film and, just help.
Right. And the neighbor who, if this is true, if his tip led police to these kids, it's definitely a good textbook case of, if you see something, say something. In all these crimes, who knows, one day we may be a witness where we see something that gives a family some peace. So I think it's going to be a twisting and turning web that we're about to see, but I think we'll start seeing some more information leak out here and there a lot quicker now, but not all of it, because they got to save the big stuff for trial. They do not want too much out there. There could be other arrests. We don't know who's involved in what capacity since all this has happened. They may have had people aiding and abetting. They could have had people obstructing justice by not calling the cops if they knew stuff. I don't think we've seen the last of the arrests by far.
Me either.
No. Well, I think that's all we got for you guys tonight.
Mikhail, thanks for
listening. Thank you, Mikhail.
Everybody else.
We'll try to do one maybe tomorrow. We're not sure yet. It just kind of depends on what comes out. Definitely if we get a cause of death or more charges or any kind of other news, we can hop back on here really quickly and do something. But just thank you, everybody, for listening to us. We're very new at this podcast. It's only a couple of days old. It's a little newborn, so we got to nurture it and, get it to where it stands on its own 2 feet. But thanks for being patient. Check out our Twitter page. I got to pull up the handle because it's still new. I don't know it offhand. You can follow us on Twitter at Pretty Lies Alibi. I couldn't fit it all. So it's PrettyLiesAlibi. My Twitter handle is at GGMCK. That's GIGIMCK. I don't think Fruit Loop has a Twitter yet. Nope. We got to get her on Twitter. It's fun to kind of talk to people away from the stories too. We're working on a Facebook page. This podcast is now available on, hey, J-Ron, you just joined us as we're leaving, but you can listen to this from the beginning. We're working on, this is now available in the Apple podcast store and is also available on Spotify. So we're starting to get approved for the different platforms, and more to come. Let's see. Mikhail says, could you save this episode? I believe you can. Let me look into that, and I will send you a message on Twitter. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to work on the next episode starting now. We're going to start getting our notes together so we can pack as much as we can in there. What say you, Fruit Loop?
Y'all have a good evening. Bye.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.